Hi, it's Penny here, and today I thought we would go through the 10 lowest rated books that I've read. So Goodreads has this functionality where it tells you the average rating of a book, which is basically all the ratings that it's been given by the people that have read it, averaged up into one average rating. I asked on Twitter the other day, and people tend to agree that under 3.5 is starting to get bad, and under 3 is almost definitely bad, and under 2.5 is a problem. So number 10 on this list has an average rating of 3.26, which is pretty bad already, and that is Slam by Nick Hornby. Now, to be honest, I gave this 1 star, so I think it deserves to be much lower on the list. The book sells itself as being about this teenage boy who has a poster of Tony Hawk on his wall, and he talks to the poster. Now, when I read that, I thought they would be having conversations, but I don't think so. Or maybe I just forgot them, because the actual focus of the book, and this is spoilers, but I'm going to give them anyway because I don't recommend this book and I don't want you to read it. But what actually happens is he gets his girlfriend pregnant and he has a big cry about how it's ruined his life. He runs off and then he somehow goes forward in time, supposedly I guess to learn something, but he doesn't really learn anything when he's come back. He's still kind of a dick. He doesn't really appreciate that the girl's life is even more disrupted than his, and he just needs to get over himself and like step up, man. This book just frustrated me so much because it seems like the plot is designed for him to learn something, but he doesn't really learn anything. And just like, it's not enjoyable to read about a dickhead teenage boy being a dickhead teenage boy. Anyway, let's move on. So our number 9 book has an average rating of 3.25, and it's Her Fearful Symmetry by Audrey Niffenegger. Now, I picked this up from a thrift shop for 50 cents because Audrey Niffenegger is the author of The Time Traveler's Wife, which I did enjoy. Although, once I read this, I remembered that The Time Traveler's Wife does have some things that are a little bit, like, not terrible, but because this guy is like having a relationship with a woman, but he often jumps into different parts of her life because when he's stressed, he time travels. And so in some parts, he's almost kind of having a relationship with her when she's really young and he's really old, and it's yuck. And in this one, we also have a relationship with an older man and a younger woman, and I also felt it was quite yuck, especially because, and again, spoilers, so this one you might want to skip because there are some good bits in this bit. We are following these twins that move into their auntie's apartment after she dies, and unfortunately one of those twins then starts a relationship with her auntie's boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, boyfriend, and then I'll tell you the spoilers. I'll mark it here so you can skip. But eventually that twin essentially commits suicide and becomes a ghost, intentionally becomes a ghost, and her auntie steals her body and gets back with the boyfriend. It's just kind of creepy and yuck. And also the reason why one of the twins wants to commit suicide, well, originally she was talking about faking her death just to get away from her twin because she wanted some freedom from her twin to be herself. But like, wouldn't it have been easier just to tell your twin that rather than faking your death? So there were some interesting ideas in this, and there's a character in it with OCD that, I mean, I'm not sure about that representation, but just overall, I thought this was an okay book. I gave it 3 stars, so maybe it doesn't deserve to be this low, but I can see why a lot of people would leave this book with an icky feeling, because I did. I've also seen people really love this though, so I guess it depends how much those uneven relationships put you off. Then at number 8, with an average rating of 3.2, we have the Snowpiercer graphic novel volume 2. So I know that recently there's a TV show being released of Snowpiercer. I've been avoiding it because I'm scared that it will ruin the fact that I really love the movie. And it was because I love the movie that I picked up the graphic novels. And I did give the first volume 4 stars, but then the second volume I gave 2 stars because the first volume and the movie, and I assume the TV show, is all based around this train. It's like a world where everything is frozen and they can't stop the train because if they do, they'll freeze to death. And the different cars of the train are all like different classes, with the people at the back being in the worst situation. And that's cool, and I think the first volume of the graphic novel did that really well, but the second volume, they get off the train, I think, and there's like this weird Cannibal Zoo. I don't really remember because it was a while ago when I read it, but I do admit that it wasn't great, and so it probably does deserve to be on this list. Then number 7 has an average rating of 3.11, and this one I feel kind of bad about it being on this list, even though I didn't really like it, and that is Zenith by Sasha Ellsberg and Lindsay Cummings. Now, to be honest, like, I didn't like this, but I also don't think that it's significantly worse than a lot of other YA science fictions that I have seen people say they liked. But Sasha Ellsberg is a really well-known booktuber, and I would say that's why this book got so much attention. And I think it probably, in a world where she wasn't a popular booktuber, wouldn't have even been published, or if it had, it wouldn't have gotten as much attention. And so probably a lot of people picked up this book. Some of them just haters who wanted to dislike it, and also people that aren't usually interested in this kind of book and so probably shouldn't have picked it up. I don't know, it's definitely risky releasing a book when you're a well-known YouTuber or any kind of celebrity, because there are just so many people who are going to tell you it's amazing even if it's not, and it's probably really hard to get honest feedback until you've released it to everyone, and then suddenly you've got a lot more of it than you wanted. Then number 6 has an average rating of 3.08, and this is The Shape Stealer, which is the 3rd book in the Black Swan Rising series. This is another one where it's been a while since I read it, because I think I really only read this series because I got it from the library. I picked it up because it had a beautiful cover. Always gets you into trouble. Although, I do also remember that I gave the first 2 books in the series 3 stars, and it's just this last one that only got a 2 stars from me. And when I looked on Goodreads, you can see the average rating drops for each book. And I don't really remember exactly what this is about now, but there was a girl who discovers that she has some kind of magical fairy powers, something to do with a swan. And then I think in the 2nd book, she ends up swapping places with her past self because there's some kind of time travel thing going on. And there's also some guy who's like a vampire who lives for ages. I don't know if he was a vampire, but he lives for ages. And so she has a relationship with him both in the past and in the present. So he's kind of like having a relationship with both versions of herself, but suddenly the versions that he's having a relationship have swapped. I don't know if I'm even remembering this right. But this is one where I think, like, I don't think it was an amazing book, but does it deserve to be on the part of the list with the worst books? I don't really think so. Then number 5 with an average rating of 2.69 is The Almost Moon by Alice Sebold. So Alice Sebold wrote The Lovely Bones, which I know a lot of people probably read after they watched the movie, and I do recommend the movie. It's really beautiful. I've heard some people say that they think the book is better, but I don't really like Alice Sebold's writing style, especially in The Lovely Bones. I actually liked The Almost Moon more. However, I can see how people, having read The Lovely Bones, and it's this wonderful story about this girl who's died, and it's written in such a beautiful way, but there are some dark bits in it. The Almost Moon, though, is much more dark, like just darkness. No beautiful stuff, just darkness. Because this woman ends up murdering her senile mother because she can't be bothered with her anymore, and then after that has an affair with her friend's adult son. There's bits where she's like dragging the body around and just all sorts of awfulness. And I don't think it was necessarily badly written, and I do think it had some interesting themes, but what is actually happening in the book is it's very clearly expressed as being yuck in the book. Like, I think my problem with Her Fearful Symmetry is that it's made out like this relationship is okay or even good. Whereas in The Almost Moon, she's doing terrible things, but like even she knows she's doing terrible things. So this is another one where I didn't necessarily like it, but I did give it 3 stars. So I don't think it was so terrible that it should be on the lowest rated list. Then number 4 with an average rating of 2.66. So I've actually wrapped 3 together here because they are all 3 volumes of the Angel Comics season 11. Season 11 I think was quite a bad season for the Buffy related comics. In this particular season, in the Angel ones, I think that Angel goes back in time to change something from his past, but it never really makes sense and it isn't really interesting. at all. I only gave them all 2 stars. I didn't really think they were great. I do think though that I think some people don't like time travel. I don't know why, because I love time travel, and so I suspect it might be rated lower than it might be if it hadn't had time travel in it, just because some weird people don't like time travel. Why would you not like time travel? Then number 3, with an average rating of 2.62, is related to the Angel comics, and that is the Giles season 11. So in the Buffy the Vampire comics, at some point, Giles, who is Buffy's watcher, the one who teaches her all about being a vampire slayer, he gets changed into a kid again. And so this book is set when he's a teenager and he's going to school. He's having a relationship with this black girl and he is trying to protect this girl Blue, although why? I don't know. I never worked it out. Does he have any chemistry with this girl he's having a relationship with? Not really. She just appears out of nowhere. And the main plot seemed to be this devil type demon that was really just Trump, and he gave this big spiel for pages and pages about all this stuff, which just felt like, why would I want to read this propaganda with this ugly Trump-ish devil on the page? It was terrible. I gave it 1 star, and I don't often give out 1 stars, so I think this is one where it deserves to be on this list. Then at number 2, with an average rating of 2.49, so we've crossed the 2.5 threshold now, so this is into quite terrible books. So we have Sweet Valley Confidential. So when I was about 12-ish, I think, my neighbor had a big collection of Sweet Valley High books and I would borrow them all the time. These books, it was a really long series about these white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed twins. Elizabeth's always very serious. Jessica's the party girl, and they have all sorts of shenanigans. At some point, they also did like a prequel series, Sweet Valley Twins, when they were in middle school, I think. And then there was also a university series where they were older. I did read some of those as well. Then, well after these ones, they released Sweet Valley Confidential. It's like the special edition about the twins as adults. And I hated it. Which I felt really bad about because my mum actually gave it to me for Christmas and I wanted to love it. But you know how in Gilmore Girls, the last season that they released, and Rory's kind of not Rory because she suddenly lost all ability to be a skilled person. Like, even though she's amazing all through school and university, suddenly she can't deal with being a grown-up in the workforce, which just seems so unrealistic. And they did the same thing with Elizabeth. She's like totally failing at life and she's super depressed and just having a really terrible time for the whole book. And as far as I remember, Jessica is just like worrying about seeing Elizabeth again and what Elizabeth's gonna think about her for the whole book. It was so long and so tedious and so completely pointless. Like, if you're going to read this book, you're reading it for nostalgia and you're gonna want Elizabeth and Jessica to be Elizabeth and Jessica and to meet all their old friends, but in this one, they're not even with any of their old friends. I think they just totally missed the point about why people would have wanted to read that book. Anyway, with that, we're up to the lowest rated book that I've read, or at least that I've listed on Goodreads as read. This one actually probably shouldn't be on this list, and we can just say Sweet Valley Confidential is the lowest rated book, because the one that is number 1 has an average rating of 2, and that's because only one person has rated it, and they gave it a rating of 2, and that one person is not me, because I only marked this as read because I own it, but I read it so long ago that I didn't want to put a rating in Goodreads until I reread it at some point. So the book I'm talking about is Destiny's Child by Patricia Morton. So this is a book that used to belong to my mum, and at some point I inherited it along with some of her other books, and I think she gave me a lot of books and I've only kept a few of them, the ones that I remember really liking. So at some point I really liked this. It's just like a gothic romance, I think. Somehow this girl ends up running around in this castle in her nightgown or something. But I will say, I had a look on Goodreads, and the one person who has rated this 2 stars has actually read quite a lot of gothic romance, and they rate it really highly. So maybe maybe this just isn't good Gothic romance, but that doesn't mean that I won't like it when I get to rereading it, because I don't think I necessarily like Gothic romance, but maybe I would like bad Gothic romance because it would be good at something else. Anyway, at some point I will reread all my mum's old books and we can have a fun time seeing what those are like. But that's all the books. Do let me know if you've read any of the books I've talked about today, because I would love to know if you think they deserve to be the lowest rated. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are keeping safe and reading lots of good books, and I will see you next time.